All right. Good morning, everyone. We're back fully engaged in Surfliner's winter 2022 work cycle. It started January 19th and it will continue through to March 15th. This morning, we will be highlighting work that was completed for Sprint 10, which had a Comet focus. I'll turn this over to Tom now so that he can tell us about the goal for the sprint and the work that was done. Here's Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Gabriella. So our goal for the sprint, for this Comet sprint, was to lay the groundwork for discovery, publishing of Comet objects into discovery platforms. And really, our overarching goal for the work cycle has to do with sort of ironing out the details of how the life cycle of objects from ingest into Comet all the way through to the visibility in any number of discovery platforms is going to work. So later in the work cycle, we have sprints planned where we'll be working on Comet and Shoreline, the geodata platform, in tandem. And really our goal is to sort of end the work cycle with a full life cycle where the geospatial data curators can deposit objects into Comet and see them push through into Shoreline using a workflow that works for their actual needs. So you'll recall that we did work in the fall on Comet object deposit and workflow. So I'll sort of skip over that and start from, Gabriella, can you see a comment on my screen?
I can.
Thank you. So our immediate, here, I'm just going to log in before I start too much. I'll be Comet admin at UCSD. So our immediate need was to figure out how we're going to see data from Comet go to any discovery platform. And in order to sort of bracket that off into a manageable set of problems, we ended up standing up a system that we've dubbed Tidewater to serve as the OAI endpoint, like a public OAI endpoint that objects from Comet can be published into. What we found in discussing how we would actually publish objects from Comet into an OAI platform is that we would want to do that by collection. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick make a collection. Throw my title case expectations into the wind. I should be able to put some objects in that collection. I'm just gonna, oh, am I not an admin if I'm Comet admin? Who will I be an admin as? I was expecting to be able to deposit into that. Oh, no, it did go through. I just can't see it because the object is private. Okay, fascinating. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can edit it to, no, I definitely can't. Exciting. Let's go ahead and put this one directly into, I'll put a wax cylinder in it. Why not? Oh, I don't have any wax cylinders. Let's do Surfliner. Okay. Oh, this review deploy is a little bit fussy, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Let's go ahead and save that. I'll just be unauthorized and we'll not worry too much about that. Okay, so I've got a collection. Well, I can't see the publish button if I can't edit the collection. Can somebody help me with a review? What user can I be in a standard review app? Apparently it's not Comet admin anymore. Maybe if I do we're just going to see if that works. Does that give me admin access? Oh, it sure does. Okay, fascinating. Let's do all collections. Oh, whoa, that won't work. Let's make a new collection. Starting over. And this time, so this time we do have a published collection. It's probably useful to do deposit new work. And I think that will put an object into the collection. So we have the review and approval process. One thing to call out is that when we publish this, currently we'll publish objects regardless of their review approval status. But what's new here is that we have this publish collection button. And when I push this button, some actually interesting and complex things will happen, like that, for instance. This this might have the collection function turned off, or it might just have failed. In any case, when I push this button, some complex stuff will happen, and that stuff really is important from the groundwork perspective on getting things into OAI. So one of the big outcomes of this work cycle, it may not have just looked very compelling, but we did get a pretty large set of the pieces in place from this for this. I think actually the failure is probably because there's no message queue on the other side. The outcome that that we really did iron out is what that architecture will look like. And will this go ahead and display? Maybe it will. So we did a research spike with a piece of software called Rabbitmq that we think will serve in this role here. So the flow is, if I push the button in Comet, then a message goes into Rabbitmq, and the OAI app will pick up that message and add the object to the OAI feed. Right now, we have, again, substantial, so in addition to the button, we have substantial work in progress on the Comet side of this. Newly, even just this morning, there's substantial work in progress on the OAI side of this. And then we think what we'll do at that point is expose the Comet metadata through a metadata API that the various front ends will read out of. we sort of, by choosing to use OAI first, we were able to bracket off the content question since OAI is a metadata only endpoint. The question of how will something like Shoreline get content from Comet into its own systems for display, or how will it interact with actual content files that that Comet is exposing, either directly or through IIIF or ... So we've bracketed off those questions and have focused sort of just on this part of the diagram. This diagram here is actually brand new this sprint. So that's one of the things that we worked on fairly extensively. The other technical progress to call out is that we did make at least the outline of this Metadata API app, and we've started to open up the tickets for the details of how that will work. And then last but not least, there's been quite a bit of work happening on the actual OAI system. This is one that was deployed out of, we can do, I think I haven't tested a lot of commands here, but I can do like, so you can see repository name Tidewater, and these were configured at deploy time. And at present, there's just one scheme, one metadata scheme. I wonder if I can do, oops. Is it just OAI? No, that doesn't work. Okay. Anyway, we're not yet publishing Comet data directly into this. But again, we do sort of have the pieces largely in place on this side, and then on this side, and much of our work for the next sprint will be in figuring out how best to make those things interact so that we can show you content going direct from Comet into a public-facing front end that's that's deployed externally from Comet, hopefully by the end of next spring. Again, on the second two sprints of this work cycle, we are planning to sort of take all of this infrastructure and put it into practice for a more complex set of metadata in the shape of Shoreline, as well as to address the content questions. The last thing that I want to say is that a bunch of a number of our team members participated for a week during this sprint in the Samvera Dev Congress. And this was a really productive meeting. There were 10 or 15 participants, and we had a lot of progress on two things that are really important to us in a community context there. One is that that the project of moving Hyrax onto a current version of Blacklight and Rails, which are two of its big dependencies that are currently aging. That project made a lot of progress during that meeting. And then the other is that on the Hyrax side, a lot of work got done to make file characterization in particular work. And what that means is if I go back to my objects and I click this one. Oh, I didn't add a content file to this, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll make a GIF. Okay, so that did attach a file to this object. As usual, ignore the thumbnail, but that is actually relevant. So what we want to see here is some expanded technical metadata about this file. And we think that, though I can't demo it for you now, we think that we're going to be able to close the loop on that very rapidly, because the work got done in the platform that Comet is based on, rather than on our side, which has a high value because it means that we're not the sole people responsible for maintaining it. So we think we can close the loop on that, and then that in turn opens the door for the derivative generation process, which is really key, both to like simple things like displaying this thumbnail so you can see what the content is in the UI, but also importantly, derivatives are key for this this issue here, because our assumption largely is that archival objects going into Comet won't be exposed directly to front ends in at least many cases, if not most or all. So this content integration with a shoreline or a starlight or a ... tidewater or what have you will likely be triggered from that derivatives work that got done in that context. Okay, so that's the current sprint, the sprint that's wrapping today. The upcoming work, I think I've sort of already touched on, is mainly to work out the rest of that integration through the message broker system, so that we can actually move content in full from Comet to a discovery front end. So that will look like ironing out all the details of the actual messages that get published here, making sure that little errors like the ones that we saw don't exist, and then substantially, the question is sort of like, how best do we handle the metadata integration between these systems? So if I have configured metadata on Comet, making sure that that configured metadata is also what's exposed through the API, and that our front ends can successfully read that content, or read that metadata rather. The sort of stretch goal is to begin touching on this in preparation for the shoreline issue. And last but not least, I think we're interested in how best we can expand on this button, because while a collection publish button for OAI made sense as a first pass at this, we really think that the actual publishing workflows are going to be more tied in with the Comet workflow system than like a collection-wide action, at least for platforms that aren't OAI. So we're going to try and have some conversations with the subject matter experts in the Surfliner team to try and figure out what those integrations need to look like from the UI side. I think that's it for me. Gabriella, do you have anything to add to close us out?
Not to add, but I do have a question. Now that you're on the dashboard here, the publish collection, if I push that button, how does that affect the visibility of the collection? Because I recall seeing that it was private. So does that not touch it at all?
Yeah, that's right. At this point, it doesn't touch it in either direction. So what I mean by that is this publish button will push the collection to OAI, or more specifically, it will push collection publish event to this message broker, which then the OAI feed should pick up. Regardless of the visibility of either the collection or the objects within it. So that is to say, this button at this moment knows nothing about the object level permissions for either the collection or the objects. I think that won't do, and that's one of the reasons why this button is not in our staging deploys, is that we sort of made the decision to hide it behind a feature flag so that we could demo and test it and have the conversation with you and the other and the SMEs about how those things should interact. So I think we'd really like to be opening tickets about what that behavior should look like. But the scope of what actually got done is just sort of like getting to this point. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and it sounds like you are suggesting that we start thinking about that now. We want to push some of these tickets into the next sprint. Yeah,
I'd really like, I think we're at a point where from the UI side on Comet, the feedback from SMEs is really going to be helpful figuring out what we need to do next. Is the spec that we wrote out for this sprint was sort of, I should be able to publish this. The one place where this does check permissions now is if I don't have, which I guess we saw earlier, if I don't have edit access to the collection, then I will not see this button, which that may also be wrong. Like it may be that edit access is not the right granularity for that, and that there's some other access level that we should key the ability to push this into and push a given collection into a given front end should look like. So those are all open questions as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks, Tom. That helped. Anyone else have questions? Good work, everyone. It's a nice surprise. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.